most prominent English poet. He was considered to be the most prominent English poet of the early 18th century. And the poem that we are going to learn today is a poem which he wrote when he was just 12 years old. And when we go through the poem, we'll understand that as a child of 12, Alexander Pope had, ideas which a grown-up, a mature person would be having. So that shows his level of intelligence over here. Though they were staying in the town, they were forced to go to live in a village because of their Catholic faith. During that time, there were a lot of disturbances based on the religion there. And the village, which is now known as Pope's Wood, was named after Pope himself. So he found himself there as a young child, and he felt that with the ideals that that he had, and the reality that he was living in, the situations that they were in, he felt that there was a lot of solitude which which inspired him to move forward in his writings. Okay, and coming to this poem, the poem bears little resemblance to the work that he has done later in the literature was not exactly the same as that, but it spoke about the happiness one would found living alone. That is, where the person doesn't have to compromise or forego a lot of his own ideas, and the person seems to be very happy and self-sufficient with whatever he has. It might be because of his own opinions, his views, his ideas, or how he is respected by others. So that plays an important role here. If you could just move on to page number 28, the last paragraph there, if you see in your textbook, there is a mention of the other works that Alexander Pope had done. And one of the best work, would be Rape of the Lock, which is a very small incident. And he has written a very good poem on that. We'll move on to page number, the next page, that is 29, where you have the poem. So here, when you look into the PPT also, you have the stanza there and the explanation also I posted over there. So the first 4 lines are written there. Happy the man whose wish and care a few paternal acres bound, content to breathe his native air in his own ground. So here, what he means to say is that, the man is very happy. How can he be happy? Here he mentions about a paternal. So this is what hereditary he is getting a property or a land from, from the father's side, which he owns. And he feels that, I'm happy if I get few acres of that kind. And, I live on my own ground. The own ground here speaks about his native ground. That is the place where he belongs to. Okay. So he feels that, he'll be happy there because it would be his own space, and he will have all the cattle also as per the village wherever he is living. The animals also would be the same, and the seasons also would be the same. So he would be experiencing what is his own. So he is not going to a new place. That is what he says in the first 4 lines. And in the second 4 lines, he feels that, the herd which gives the milk and the fields which give the grains. Here, the bread is nothing but it is not going to prepare a bread over there, but he means to say the field, whatever he has put, when it, fields come to ripe, and when the supply comes out, he can prepare his own food over there. And, there's a lot of things which is his own thing. It is not a new thing that he's living in. So this verse simply means that the man is self-sufficient. His land, now shown to be a farm, provides for all his needs. So here, all his needs are provided. He's in his own land. He needn't go some other place. So that speaks about him not being with people. He is alone over here, enjoying the individuality or the independency of staying. Nobody is there to boss him. That is what he feels like. And the next 4 lines, he feels that the farmer is blessed, the person who is living there. Here, the farmer is the child of 12 years old, Alexander Pope, his own feelings. He is not a farmer there, but he places himself imagining him to be a farmer. And he says that as the hours, the days, and the years roll by, everything will remain the same. There's no change. Everything is going to remain the same. and the health of the man when he began his life would be the same till he finishes. This is what he means to say. So he is not exploring into new things, new places. So he is in the same old place where he is used to. So there is lot of peace of mind also. This is what we find among the senior citizens today, day to day life. If you have some aged people in your house, they always keep comparing with what they had previously when they were young, and the ambience around the place where they were living and all that. They keep comparing, in our childhood, the story goes on like this, right? So here you can imagine a 12 years girl, 12 years old boy, young boy, thinking on time, I mean, on lines of being a adult. So this is some special quality of the poet here. And you can see in the third stanza, he was speaking about it. When it comes to the fourth stanza, you'll be a little bit surprised where, the innocent child here, you feel that an idea of innocence has been introduced. But, he describes that about a man who lives his life in isolation. That is, there's no one with him, he's alone, he's innocent, which means he himself probably doesn't appreciate the kind of life he leads in the same way the narrator, author, or the reader does. Here, no, Alexander Pope has been thinking on lines of being an adult or a grown up person. So the child of 12 years cannot be thinking on these lines. Do we find 12 years children really speaking on these lines? Yeah. I think you would be having some children around your house. Can you imagine a 12-year-old child speaking on these terms? Any one of you can answer. Oh, there's no interaction. Yeah, I can see a lot of students in, but nobody would like to take an initiative to respond. See here, this is what we find around us at our home or
No, ma'am,
children.
we cannot find, sorry.
Yeah,
We
you.
cannot find 12 years old girl saying and thinking in this perspective.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. I don't know who was speaking it, but thanks for speaking. Yeah, yeah.
Very,
This is
very true.
Yeah. So we always find that, children don't come out to speak so open, or might be at this level, because here the poem is in a higher level of intellectual levels, and where, the poet also thinks on terms of a grown up, matured person who has been facing his life in a different way. So here the child, the suffering that the child has undergone, or moving away from the place they were living to a place, into a village, which is not their own initially, and then, trying to adjust to whatever was happening there. So here, the poet has written the poem on those lines, where his own feelings have been presented. So when we go through the poem, we feel that, the poet is very matured and all that. So this might be one of because of his experience or his intellectual levels also. So we find that, here he describes in this fourth stanza, he says, sound sleep by night, study and ease, together mixed sweet recreation and innocence, which most does please with meditation. So sleep and meditation are two different terms, and there's lot of meaning individually when you look at those things. So he says, at night, but this after the work, when the person is alone, he uses the time either to explore, or he has a very good recreation. He's when he is speaking about the enjoyment, or the free time work, he has used the word sweet to it, the adjective sweet over there, which means it is a very pleasant moment. And then, out of the innocence which most does please, that means a lot of people go into meditation. This was written in an age where, they didn't have access to television, or access to some other entertainments. So people here had a lot of time to think about a god, or being on a spiritual line, or going into meditations. This is what he meant. Yeah. So here, when we speak in the fourth stanza, the if we are speaking about the character that has been there in the poem, that is the farmer, whom the poet thinks, imagines, and writes the poet's, the farmer's thought. We find that, the farmer is in a different line over here. Now he has come into the spiritual line. Now in the fifth stanza, thus let me live unseen, unknown, thus unlamented let me die, steal from the world and not a stone, tell where I lie. So here he says, this is something totally, you can take it that, he doesn't want to face the world at all. He is little bit scared, or he wants to escape from the responsibilities. And, he says that, let me live unseen and unknown. He doesn't want people to see him or, to be known. And, when he dies, he doesn't want anyone to cry for him. And that is the reason, the solitude, being alone, being away from everyone. That is what the poet exclusively, he mentions that he wants to be alone. He wants to be away from this world, not as a stone where I lie. That is, when he is buried, the place cannot be known also. So he won't know where he is. That is what happens after our death. Either we are burnt or we are buried. And when we are buried, how long will people remember where we are buried? That is the concept that the poet felt when he was writing these lines. If you look into page number, that is the 30, can I ask everyone to look into page number 30 with the heading Critical Discussion in the Reader. So when we look into this critical discussion in the Reader, you will find that, alternately, you can title this poem as The Quiet Life. So the quiet life is what? Something where it is someone spending time alone. The meaning, the title itself speaks for it. And, the poem conveys the mankind, the full philosophy of how to live contented. So the whole poem in 5 stanzas, it speaks about how one can live their life very happily. So when you look at the structure of the poem, you have 4 lines almost in each stanza. Yeah. And then it is written in a very simple language. He speaks about a man who is satisfied with whatever he is having, and he wants to have a silent, simple life. Any questions regarding this poem? We'll move on further if you don't have any questions. Yeah, I think you don't have any questions. So let us just go through check your progress there in page number 30. You have a question there. What is the theme of Ode on Solitude? And then what does the poet mean by native air? Who will supply him with attire? What does the narrator consider blessed? How does the narrator wish to live? How does the narrator wish to die? Suggest an alternative title for the poem. I request every one of you, please do a thorough reading after the session is over, because whatever check the progress questions are given then, try to answer them. That will help you out to do better in your exam and also understand the topic that you're learning now. Yeah. So can we move on to the next topic? So that is block 2. We'll be doing William Wordsworth. You have William Wordsworth here. Then you have you have the next 2 poets, that is P.B. Shelley and John Keats also over here. So as we move on to the romanticism or the romantic poetry, you can call this as, the romanticism started in 1798 to 1910, and the romantic poetry was the kind of poetry that was written here. Now, the word romanticism here doesn't speak about the general meaning that we have about romance. It totally speaks about the love towards the nature. Yeah. So this is in the 19th century, where we have a lot of poets who have written beautiful, and they have made a place for themselves in the history. So if you look at this romanticism, you can speak about 2 ages over here. One is called the Romantic Age. which was in 1798 to 1837. And after that, you had the Victorian age, when the name stands for it. The Queen was ruling, Victoria was ruling during that time. So we had 1837 to 1901. So the Romantic poets, they wrote about the idealism, they wrote about the imaginary things over there. But in the Victorian age, it was totally about the revolution. During that time, when the church was making an influence on the living ways and the standards, dictating terms to the people, that was when a revolutionary movement was there, and this was seen in all the writings. It was there in every writings that the poet or any novel was written, anything was written, the writings were covering the such kind of a thing. So when we look into just move over to page number 34. You have 4.2 in 33, which speaks about the romantic and the romantic poetry. And then when you come to the page number 34, you have about the romantic period, little bit written, content is given there. Before I continue, I would just like to share a word with everyone. The content that is given in your textbook, especially Ambedkar Open University book, is a compiled content and very useful material that is. Please do a reading at least not once, twice, I would say at least 3-4 times, so that you're aware of what is there. You can make bullet points and learn as per that itself. So when we speak about this word romanticism, this word coined actually originated in Europe. This was in the 1800 year. And these, it spoke about not only the style of writing in the literary works, but also about the art. That is when you speak with the painting, the music, and the criticism part or the architecture part, everything it was influenced. There was a change in the trend or the style of writing. So while you had a classism prior to this, they had lot of rules and regulations. They followed a set of they had everything was decided. They had lot of parameters there when they were doing the writings. But here it was not like that. It was lot of imaginary. There was no boundary for their thoughts, and people were imagining things. They wrote as per their own wish. So when we look at the Romantic era in the English literature, formally began in 1798. But during this time, it was the lyrical ballet by William Wordsworth and Coleridge. This was one of the best works that was done by both of them. Initially started by Wordsworth and later continued by Coleridge. So this is one important work that can be mentioned during that time. We had Shelley and also John Keats during this period. So let us begin with Wordsworth. So when we speak about William Wordsworth, he was a revolution for the romantic poetry. You had, his poems were more of the nature, not only a set of images, and they had a relationship. They spoke about a relationship between man and the nature. So there was some connectivity there, and you would enjoy as you read a lot of poems. You will start enjoying the beauty of their writings. So here there was only few of the writers who went away, started comparing things with the real life, with the nature, and also the situation that they were in. Like you had most of the writers, the revolutionary writers, speaking about the state of politics over there. They had that influence in their writing. So now let's look at this poem here, The Solitary Reaper. This, if you see, you have 7 lines, 8 lines in each stanza, and you have 5 stanzas over here. Yep. So you can read. Can I ask any one of you all to help me out with the reading part? Can someone read the first stanza? I'll just try to share the PPT.
Yeah, if it is shared, we can do that.
If it is shared over here. Okay. Just a second. I don't know if I can share it over here. I'll just try. I'll see if in my PPT if it is there. Okay. Yeah, this is about the Solitary Reaper and a little bit about the background of William Wordsworth. You can see there on the slide there, you can read. Yeah, Wordsworth was one of the founders of the English Romanticism and one its most central figure and important intellect. So he has created a history in the literature. He is a poet who considered with the human relationship to nature and fierce advocate of using the vocabulary and speech patterns of common people in poetry. So he was very close to people. You know, whatever they had, they wanted to express. He was using the same language pattern in his writing. He began writing poetry as a young boy in grammar school. So he started at a very young age. The first paragraph, I think, do you all have your textbooks with you all? The first stanza, behold her, single in the field, yon solitary highland lass, reaping and singing by herself, stop here or gently pass. Alone she cuts and binds the grain and sings a melancholy strain. Oh, listen, for the vale profound is overflowing with the sound. So in the first stanza here, we have the poet saying that one day while traveling, he sees a girl far away on a highland or a hilly place where she's standing there. And you can see that, you know, she is reaping the crops and singing songs by herself. So she is working in the fields. And then the poet here feels that, you know, stop there or gently pass. That is, whoever is passing by, he is asking them to stop there. And you know, and he says that see, she's alone cuts and binds the grace. She's doing the work all by herself, and she's singing a song so that you know she does the work very fast without being a a melancholy strain. It can be a sad song, or it can be something which is stressing her out. And he says that you know the passerby to listen and tell that you know such song. Why can't you repeat it with her? This is what he stays in the first stanza. If you have the readers, please kindly look into the reader. The second stanza, I think you can do the reading part later on. I'll just go through fast. It says, you know, no nightingale didn't ever chant more welcome notes to a weary bands of travelers in some shady haunt among Arabian sands. A voice so thrilling never was heard in springtime from the cuckoo bird, breaking the silence of the seas among the farthest Hebrides. So he says about, you know, here the poet compares the voice of the solitary reaper. The solitary reaper is the young girl over there. He says that her voice is like that of the nightingale, the bird which has a very beautiful voice. And he says that the voice is very melodious and it is very much welcoming. And before that, you know, he tries to speak about the Arabian sands also. Why does he mention the sands over here? You know, when people are traveling in the desert area or the sands, it takes a lot of time for them to cross. So here he means that, you know, they forget the way and they die also at times. So it can be that these people are also, I mean, these people can, the girl over here will also forget her way. That is what he means to say. In such a desert, if weary bands, that is, you know, the travelers, the tired travelers who can take a rest under the shady haunt, happen to hear the nightingale's voice, it will be something that, you know, it would be like a melancholy drink or something which is sweeter for them, and it would revive them to move forward in their journey. It will not stop them there. That is what he says. He says all those people who are sad, who are traveling a long distance, for them the song would be a better one. Coming to the third stanza, please look into your reader. Will no one tell me what she sings? Perhaps the plaintive numbers flow for old, unhappy, far off things and battles long ago? Or is it some more humble lay, familiar matter of today, some natural sorrows, loss, or pain that has been and may be again? So this looks much, it's almost very simple to understand. He says that, the language of the song sung by the solitary reaper, this seems to be unfamiliar. He's not familiar with that particular thing, and he wonders if anyone is there to tell me, able to tell what she's singing. So he feels he's not able to get connected to her thoughts in the poem or the way she's singing. He guesses that it might be a plaintive number, sad and mournful song in her own language, which are about unhappy past or lost things or some battle which might have taken place long ago. So he's trying to connect the dots over here. He says he feels that the girl, initially he finds a solitary reaper. A reaper is nothing but someone who is growing the fields over there. So he feels that, this girl is alone. She's talking over there, singing over there. And then he also feels that, tries to understand what she is trying to sing, the words that she is using in her singing. So the lyrics, he's trying to understand the lyrics. But then he is unable to follow the language that she's singing. He doesn't know if she's happy or unhappy. And he is also connecting the dots, the present scenario over there, saying that, at that time, is she unhappy about the lost things? That is, in the battle, she would have lost someone, or she has moved out from one place to another place, or what has happened exactly, he is not aware of it. And he also guesses that the song can be about the nature alone. It needn't be a sorrow or a loss or a pain. It can be something which she feels that she is expressing. Now, when you look at the fourth stanza, you have whatever the theme the maiden sang, as if her song could have no ending. I saw her singing at her work and over the sickle bending. I listened motionless and still, and as I mounted up the mountains, the music in my heart I bore long after it was heard no more. So here, here in fact, he says that in this stanza that whatever may be the theme of the song sung by the maiden, that is the song that she was singing. He saw her singing at work. She was singing at work. She was singing very sweetly, and she had a thought. She was focused about her singing at the same time working on the field, and she was bending her sickle over the crops. So that is, she was trying to cut the crop. He listened to her silently and without making any movement. However, when he started traveling up the hill, he could not hear her, and the music was inscribed in his heart. So as he moved forward, he did not find the solitary reaper. That means he was moving away from the place where she was. So when you look at the poem here, the solitary reaper, you have 9 lines in each stanza, and 4 stanzas are there. So it's a poem of more or less a sad feeling, a sadness it is. You have the stanzas there, which are written in an iambic pentameter. And, there is a pattern of scheme of writing. That is, when you look at the paragraph below the meanings, that is in the next page. Page number 36, if you can turn to page number 36. I'm assuring that all of you must be having a textbook with you all. Yeah. So if you look at the first and the last stanzas, the first and the third line do not rhyme. So you can go into this depth of the description of the poem when you have a textbook after the class is over. Please go through the notes given in the textbook, at least 2 to 3 readings, so that you understand the poem much more better. And check your progress is a very important thing that you need to do. All those who want to score good marks, please kindly go through the check your progress. The questions here asked are, what do you think is the central idea of the poem, The Solitary Reaper? Can any one of you all answer this? Yeah, anyone? The central idea of the poem, The Solitary Reaper. No? Okay. Do you think of the title of the poem is appropriate? Why and why not? Yeah, nice. Only on the listening end. But anyways, after the session is over, I request you all again, please do a kind reading of it. The central idea of the poem is very clear for us as we are reading it as the poem. And also the PPT has helped us to understand that it is only speaking about a young girl who is alone working in the field, and she is singing about all her pains there. It can be pain because the poet feels that it is a melancholy, or if he is wrong, it can be a happy song, because there's no joy and movement that she's jumping here and there, so we can't say that it is happy and all. So it might be she might be thinking about her family or the lost ones, or she's working alone away from her home and all that. So that can be the solitary reaper theme. Solitary is something which says, alone, and reaper speaks to the work that she's doing. As per me, I think the title is appropriate. The other questions you can answer by yourself later. Check your progress. You have, it's all the answers are also given there. You can check with your answers. Then you have questions which would come in the question paper. Is it a visual imaginary? Is it very rich visual imaginary? Write the rhyme scheme in the poem. The rhyme scheme is mentioned in page number 36. If you read the paragraph there, you have the rhyme scheme mentioned over there. So that will help you out. We'll go to the next poets. Unit 5. If you can turn to Unit 5, it will be easy for us. Yeah, I request everyone to turn to Unit 5. Page number 39. So you have here P.B. Shelley and John Keats. Now, with a small introduction to the poets there, these two poets are also the romantic poets itself. When Shelley was romantic in his writing, the way he was a traditional romantic writer, English writer, poet, and his poems were always, visionary, and they were always they always gave a essence of a few of his poems gave an essence where there was always a quest for love. He was searching for it all the time. But when you speak about the Keats, he always had a passion for social justice. So we have Shelley, visionary and politics, and also John Keats had a quest for love, and also he had a passion for social justice. The scenario of that time, that day politics, whatever influence it made on the society, this was found in the writings. Yeah. So we have Shelley's Ode to the West Wind. So when we speak about Shelley, he was born on August 4th, that is 1792. It is there in page number 39. You can just read there. And then he had his own aesthetic opinions, and he wrote pamphlets. He wrote about aesthetism. Coming to his personal life, it was not all that smooth and all. So there was a lot of agony in his life, which always reflected in most of his writings. So generally, when we look into the writers or the poets or the any kind of art of writing that people are into the literary world, you find that whatever suffering is there, it is always reflected in their writings. Yeah, their experiences. So, Ode to the West Wind. Now, when you speak about the Ode to the West Wind, you find them that you find 5 cantos there. You can call it a canto. In this style of writing, especially in Ode to the West Wind, you find in each canto, this is 5 cantos, and in the first, each canto, you have 3 lines stanzas there, which are 4. And then you have a couplet there. Couplet is nothing but 2 lines, right? So you have this poem in 5 lines. I'll just try to share the PPT where only the meaning is written. Yeah. So this is the explanation about the first canto. I don't think we'll be reading it. It would take a lot of time for us to read. Wherever necessary, few words I will try to explain to you all. So when you look into the first canto, each canto has, as I told you, it has 5 stanzas in this Ode to West Wind. So now what is this ode especially? Can any one of you tell me what is an ode? Any one of y'all? Yeah, ode is nothing but, it's called ceremonious form, a lyric poem it is. It is a lyric poem. In the form of a song, you can call it as that. And this is dedicated to whatever topic that they have chosen to. So the heading itself says to ode to the west wind. So you can understand that the writer here or the speaker here is appealing to the wild west wind. The use of capital letters for western wind immediately suggests that he is speaking of the wind as though it were a person. So when you look at that, this point, you can make a note of it. And then he calls the wind the breath of the autumn's being, thereby further personifying the wind and giving it the human quality of having breath. So when we look into the reader, all are silent. I am not sure if you have your textbook in with you all. If you look into the ode there, you'll find that he addressed it as, "O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from an enchanter's fleeing." These are the 3 lines that are written there. So here when he started the poem by addressing, "O wild west wind," but as the explanation here, the PPT shows you, the west and the wind were written in the capital letters. So that means he is emphasizing the wind and also personifying it as a human being. And he further goes on to say that he describes the wind as having unseen presence, which makes it seem as though he views the wind as a sort of a god or a spiritual being. The last line of this stanza refers to the wind as a spiritual being that drives away death and ghost. So the last line are like this: are driven like ghosts from an enchanter's fleeing. So he is blending different thoughts over here. Okay, he also compares it as a superficial being and also someone having a lot of powers, where they can the power to see that you are not under the influence of anybody else. Yeah. Now coming to the second stanza, again it has the same thing, 3 lines. Yeah, we are speaking about the first canto. There are 5 cantos in this poem. I'm again confirming it. If you open your reader, you will find that there is a capital I written there, 1, and under that you have 3 lines, stanzas 4 and a couplet there. Okay, that is 1 canto. So when you're explaining this, it will be canto wise only. So the second line in the canto is this, that we are the stanza that we are 3 lines that we are speaking about. Yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence-stricken multitudes, O thou, whose chariotist to their dark wintry bed. These are the 3 lines that he mentions. And, he describes that, he says that, the dead autumn leaves, they are not described as colorful or beautiful, but rather as a symbol of death and even disease. Okay. And the speaker describes the deathly colors, yellow, black and pale, even hectic red, reminds of one of blood and sickness. So the dried leaves, when you see in the autumn, the leaves fall down, there you see a lot of felling of leaves there, right? And when the leaves fall down, they don't look with life, they are lifeless. So here the lifeless things are compared with those colors like yellow, black, pale, hectic red. And he says that these colors represent the blood and sickness. He also says that, these drying leaves are not peaceful, and it is not rather a beautiful feeling that the leaves are falling down, or the felling down of leaves. They symbol death, sick and dying people. And the wind that comes along is like a chariot that carries the leaves. So to the grave, that is what he means to say here. Coming to the third stanza, I'm reading the 3 lines now. The winged seats where they lie cold and low, each like a corpse without its grave, until thinny azure sister of the spring shall blow. So here he uses metaphors here of the leaves as the death, and by explaining that the wind carries them winged seeds to their graves. So that means the seeds are also flying in the air, where they lie cold and low. And he then uses a simile to compare each leaf to a cross without its grave. That means the dead ones do not have a grave there. So generally we find the leaves on the ground itself, right? So, but then partway through the second line, a shift occurs. The speaker says that each is like a corpse until the wind comes through, taking away the dead by bringing new life. The use of the word azure or blue is to describe the wind is in sharp contrast to the colors used to describe the leaves. So here he means to say that, uh, uh, the wind is the wind is the main important personified. He has given life over here, so we can say the main important person in the poem who would take away the dead ones and also give a new life to the new things. Yeah. Now moving on to the next line, next stanza I will not read. I'll just explain so that you can read at leisure. Yeah. So in this, he speaks about the wind as something which drives away death, burying the death, bringing new life, and it brings living hosts and orders which are filled with new life. So he started off the canto with death, and he's speaking about lives. In between, he spoke about powerful healers, right? Now in the fifth stanza, there is it's a couplet that is there in your reader. Wild spirits which aren't moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, here, oh here. So he says, the speaker appeals to the wind and he says, you're a wild spirit. And viewing the wind as a spiritual being, he says that you destroy and also give us life. He's asking the spirit to hear his pleas, his woes about whatever his troubles he has. He has not yet made a specific request of the wind, but it is clear that he views it as a powerful spiritual being that can hear him. So, what do you think the poet is speaking about in this poem? After reading the first canto, that after explaining that, do you think what is there in the poem? I mean, the next coming stanza, can you imagine what he would be talking about? It would be very nice if you all just interact. Even if you don't know, nobody is going to ask you any questions over here. You'll be just sharing your thoughts. That's it. Nothing much. Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to the next canto. That is canto 2. The first stanza there. Here again, the speaker, he says, addresses the wind as a person, calling it the wind who will loose clouds and shake the leaves of the boughs of heaven and ocean. This reads about almost a psalm, as if the speaker is praising the wind for its power. So most of the writings during that time, they were reflecting the church and the spiritual influence on the society there. So he says, he is addressing here, thou on whose stream mind the steep skies commotion, loose clouds like earth's decaying leaves are shed, shook from the tangled boughs of heaven and ocean. So he says, it is, you're the one on whom the leaves are falling down, they're shedding and they're getting decayed. But yeah, you're shaking them from the heaven and ocean. So here it is like, it is the wind is being praised for the power it has, for the qualities it holds. Okay. Now coming to the next stanza, the three lines go like this: angels of rain and lights, there are spread on the blue surface of tiny airy surge, like the bright hair uplifted from the head. So he says, here the wind is referred as a spiritual being more powerful than angels, for the angels of rain and lightning are described as being spread on the blue surface of the wind. So the wind initially at the starting of the poem, it was a carrier of death, and then it was what do you call a savior, and now a godly position has been given to him. He says that you're more powerful than the angels. of rain and lightnings, and says that, you spread blue surface on the wind. He then describes these angels as being like the bright hair on the head of an even greater being. So he's referring to the sky, might be the blue shade which is given over here. He's also saying that, he's giving a divine color to the wind. So the level of wind is being escalated. He started off at a low level and he's just rising appreciating the wind to its level. Coming to the third paragraph. In this stanza, he compares the wind to a fierce Maenad, or a spiritual being that used to be found around the Greek god. So here again, the mythology has its own place over here. So the poet, he uses the Greek god over there, a person who is very close to the god, is being compared to the wind over here, and that it says that the hair is like the angels. The hair of the wind is like the angels, and it is described as being a god. These angels of rain and lightning reveal that storm is on the way. So when there is a lightning and all coming, it's an indication that it's going to rain heavily. That's how even we become alert, right? So here he says that the hair of the wind, it is more or less like the a signaling to us. Yep. Now coming to the next stanza. Of the dying year, to which this closing night will be the dome of vast sepulture, vaulted with all thy congregated might, of vapors from whose solid atmosphere black rain and fire and hail will burst. Oh, here. So here, when it comes to the last two stanzas in the canto, that is 3 lines and the two couplet 1, he speaks about a storm approaching. So he is giving us a warning about the storm that is approaching, and it's going to be a dying year for us. That is, it's going to hit people very badly. And he is also referring to a very small monument in which a person is buried. So typical Christian origin. To refer to something like this could suggest that Shelley wants to trap and contain all the power of the nature inside the tomb, for it to burst open. That is what he speaks of, vapors from whose solid atmosphere black rain and fire and hail will burst. Oh, here. So in the last stanza, he feels that, all well as this, he wants to see that a tomb-like thing is constructed and from where everything bursts out. And he wants to move away from all his miseries and finally be at one with nature. So we know that we have just read that Shelley happens to be a nature poet. He always had a love. He always connected his poems with nature. There was a twist of love also in that, and little bit of the politics also was there, blended with the at that time when he was writing the poem or his works. Whatever influence that the society could do on him, that he mentioned in his poems. So when we look at the other cantos, they speak about the miseries that he has been facing and how he has come out of it. And he also, if you look at it from the other way, if you speak about it, he correlates the leaves of a tree to the needs or the blessed things about a human life, and how the wind, comes and spoils the dead leaves are driven away, and later it gives life back to the tree again, and all this. So he correlates this with his life, and it is more or less a personification of the wind, where he himself is also placed over there. This is till the second canto. So we have only 9 minutes more. So I would like you all to go through the reader once. Can you all come back to the reader? The remaining 3 stanzas you can also read on your own. The third stanza, it speaks about the Mediterranean coast, the Atlantic Ocean, and it tells us, it describes the clouds, and it tells us more about the wild feats, what a wind can do, how dangerous it can be, because it is the wind itself which causes a lot of rains for us and all that stuff, right? So this goes on like that. And then you have it also speaks about um, irregular rains, irregular things happening in the nature because of the wrong directional movement of the wind. That is also mentioned in one of the stanzas. And then he prays to the west wind that it is the hour of need. He says that, one of the most striking images that are used in the poem is like this: I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed. So he says he's not happy about it. He feels that his life is full of miseries, a lot of thorns, not happy moment happening in his life. So he says, he uses this line, and he says that, he has to explore the world in his own spirit. The universe has to be explored, and he has to blend with the nature, where, he feels that the mankind has to go along a very smooth life, uh, where he also mentions a line like this: if winter comes, can spring be far behind? That means here he's personified his own personal sorrows in his life, where he couldn't really enjoy the beauty of having a very smooth life, right? His life was full of miseries, his personal life, which is being reflected over here. And at the same time, he in this ode to West Wind, he is expressing his own thoughts. The story goes about a tree or the leaves and about the wind and all that. But the wind here is the God himself, and he being the leaves over there. Got it? So he's blended the mankind over there, and there is a relation connection that he has given between the inanimate things and the animate things. So this is one beauty of his writings. And he also says that, like the leaves that have fallen down, a new life has begun. So the same way, everyone, whoever has breathed his last, should be having a new life again. So quicken. So that is his thought, and where he also asks, death and decay signifies the onset of rebirth and regeneration. So the continuation circle of life, the spiritual meaning of life and death, or in modern terms, we can use a lot of other terms also here, words over here. But especially during that time, he was against the miseries of his life and the society. So what was exactly happening? He wanted to be against it. He wanted a very smooth life. So when you look into the check your progress there, do you find the poem Ode to the West Wind simple or complex? Give reasons. So it is not all that simple. It is a very complex poem. If you go to the answers also, you can check that. You have the answers at the end, where, it says the poem is complex, both in terms of form and theme. So here each canto is not simple. It is a very lengthy one. And then the theme of the poem is also very lengthy. It consists of 5 panoramic stantic movements, each taking the form of a sonnet with a complex musical pattern of internal rhyme. So there is a rhythm in the poem which has been followed. If you look at the structure of the poem, if you have the textbook with you, you can look at it. Every stanza ends with a different word, so you can easily understand how the poem has been written. So, and also you can, you'll be, when you are, when you check that, when you're going through that, you will find that, he has been describing the impact of a leaf or a cloud or a wave, and also the wind. These are all different symbols that have been used over here. And you can also take it that, the wind has been used as a form of, it has been used as a reform of revolution. It can be somewhere where he is expressing his revolutionary thought. It might be an inner pain towards the society that the poet tried to explain in the poem. So you have a lot of questions there and answers also at the end. You can check your answers with that. How does the poet describe the wind in the second stanza? Pick up the stanza words. So please give a thorough reading about this. In your next class, Amulya ma'am will continue from John Keats onwards. Any questions till now? You have any questions? Please do ask me. We are left with 3 minutes. Am I clear?
Clear, ma'am.
Okay, I think only Nikhil has been responding. Thank you, Nikhil, for your response. It's very nice to see at least one of you respond. There was one more girl who answered. I couldn't get her name. Thank you again for the other person also. Any doubts? You can ask me now. So a quick revamp we have been doing from Alexander Pope. So we all know that Alexander Pope belonged to the Augustan age. That was in the early 18th century. And when we are speaking about the Romanticism, it is the late 18th century where you had began from 1798 to 1910. Even in this Romanticism age, we had Romanticism, we had two ages called the Romantic age and the Victorian age. When we speak about the Romantic age, it is from 1798 to 1837, and the Victorian age is from 1837 to 1901. So as the name goes, it is very simple to understand. In the Romantic age, it was only idealism and imagination. When we are speaking about the Victorian age, during this time, there was a lot of revolution in the poem. So the writings were all revolutionary. Whatever form of writing it was, whether it was a poem or it was a prose writing, there was a lot of revolution reflected in that. And then you had William Wordsworth and Coleridge, the main poets of that time. And then you had Shelley and Keats also. Shelley's writings were more of visionary, they were romantic, or they were connected to the nature, like the poem that we just were speaking about. So, but later we had poets where, like poet like Keats. Keats was always in the quest of love. He was searching for it somewhere or the other in some form. And there was a passion for social justice in his poems. He actually, Keats was a nature poet, and he died at the age of 25. At a very young age, he died, but he had done a lot of contribution towards literature. That was what he, from Keats it was. And when we speak about Romanticism, this was a word which originated in Europe. It's during this time, the Romanticism was seen in every form of art. It was in paintings, drawings, then literary work, music, drama, everything it was seen. It was reflected over there, right? Thank you all. Thank you very much for the session. Any doubts? Yeah, thank you, Zabin. Thank you very much. Sarah, please send the PPT ma'am in group. Okay, fine. I'll share it with Amulya. She'll send it to you all. Thank you. Thank you, Zabin. Thank you, Zara, and others also. Thank you.